Ladies and gentlemen, Asian guy here, and I need you to stop everything you're doing right now. Put down your phone, close your laptop, turn off Netflix, because what I'm about to show you is the most terrifying financial intelligence that's ever been leaked. China just moved $8 trillion. $8 trillion. That's more than the entire economy of Germany, more than Japan, more than the GDP of every country in Africa combined. And they moved it in a way that will destroy Western markets completely. Not might destroy, will destroy. Here's what makes this absolutely bone-chilling. This exact move has happened 3 times in recorded history. Same pattern, same sequence, same devastating outcome. Every single time, without exception, without mercy, the established empire collapsed within 24 months of the trigger event. I'm about to show you the 4-stage pattern that destroys superpowers. The pattern they don't teach in business school. The pattern that's been erased from history books because it's too dangerous for the public to understand. And we're not at stage 1 anymore. We're not at stage 2. We're deep into stage 3, with stage 4 beginning in exactly 18 months. By the end of this video, you'll understand why every Western investor who doesn't see this coming will lose everything. You'll know exactly when it happens. And you'll discover the only assets that survive the collapse. The pattern is called the 4 stages of economic conquest. Stage 1, foundation of dependency. Stage 2, asymmetric accumulation. Stage 3, strategic repositioning. Stage 4, controlled demolition. It's happened to Britain in 1914. It's happened to America in 1987. It's happened to Europe in 2022. And now it's happening to the entire Western financial system. Let me show you exactly what China has done in the shadows over the last 24 months. The $8 trillion restructuring that proves stage 3 is complete and stage 4 is beginning. First, they've liquidated $300 billion in U.S. Treasury bonds. Not gradually, not quietly, systematically, deliberately, sending a clear message to Washington: we don't need your debt anymore. But here's what's terrifying. They still hold $800 billion. That's not their investment. That's their weapon. When they dump those remaining bonds all at once, U.S. interest rates will spike to levels that make the 1970s look like a picnic. Second, they've increased their gold reserves by 400% in just 2 years. Official numbers say 2,000 tons, but commodity traders I know personally in Shanghai tell me the real number is over 8,000 tons. They're buying every ounce of gold on the planet, paying massive premiums, avoiding public markets to hide the accumulation. Why? Because they're preparing to back the digital yuan with gold and destroy the dollar's fiat dominance overnight. Third, and this is where it gets absolutely devastating, they've signed currency swap agreements with 47 countries in the last 18 months. 47 countries that can now trade directly in yuan without touching a single dollar. Russia, $400 billion swap. Saudi Arabia, $200 billion swap. Brazil, $180 billion swap. These aren't trade deals. These are grave markers for the dollar's funeral. But the most shocking move happened in November 2023, and barely anyone noticed. China ordered all state-owned enterprises to completely divest from Western markets within 36 months. Let me repeat that. All state-owned enterprises, complete divestment, 36-month deadline. That's not portfolio adjustment, that's preparation for total economic war. $8 trillion of Chinese institutional money currently sits in Western stocks, bonds, real estate, and private equity. All of it must be liquidated by November 2026. When that selling pressure hits, Western markets won't decline, they'll disintegrate. Now let me show you the historical pattern that proves this is inevitable. Britain versus Germany, 1900-1914. Britain controlled global finance. The pound was the world's reserve currency. Trade between Britain and Germany reached record levels. Everyone said economic ties made war impossible. They were catastrophically wrong. Between 1900 and 1910, Germany quietly reduced their British pound holdings by 75% and accumulated the largest gold reserves in continental Europe. They built trade relationships with Russia, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, creating an alternative economic sphere. By 1912, German bankers were openly planning financial warfare in private meetings. We have the documents, the strategy papers, the meeting minutes. They spent 2 years building the weapon. August 1914, World War I begins. Germany immediately froze British assets, recalled gold from London, and triggered a massive liquidity crisis. The Bank of England nearly collapsed in the first week, not from bombs, from bank runs. Britain had to suspend gold convertibility just to survive. Their economic dominance shattered overnight. Within 30 years, the dollar replaced the pound as the world's reserve currency. Stage 4. Complete. The pattern executed perfectly. America versus Japan, 1950 to 1990. America rebuilt Japan after World War II, made them a trading partner. By 1985, Japan held over $300 billion in U.S. currency reserves. But they weren't just holding dollars, they were converting them into American real estate, buying Rockefeller Center, Pebble Beach, Columbia Pictures. Americans thought it was investment. It was positioning. October 1987, Black Monday, the worst single-day crash in history. 22.6% drop in one day. Over $1 trillion in market value vanished. Was it random panic? No. It was coordinated selling by Japanese institutions, massive liquidation of American assets, all happening simultaneously. They tried to collapse the American financial system and nearly succeeded. America survived only because the Federal Reserve printed money faster than the crisis could spread. Stage 4. Attempted. The pattern nearly completed. Europe versus Russia, 2000 to 2022. After the Cold War, Europe became completely dependent on Russian energy. 65% of German natural gas came from Russia. The relationship seemed permanent. European leaders gave speeches about how economic ties prevented conflict. Then, February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Europe responded with massive sanctions, and Russia turned energy into a weapon. They didn't cut off gas completely, that would unite the world against them. Instead, they restricted flows strategically, triggering an energy crisis that drove European inflation to 40-year highs. German factories shut down not from bombs, but from no gas, no energy, no power. Europe's economy has been damaged for years, potentially decades, all through economic warfare. Stage 4. In progress. The pattern working exactly as designed. Now China is running the same playbook, but bigger, more sophisticated, more devastating than anything in history. And they're in the final stage of preparation. Here's what Stage 4 looks like when China triggers it in 2026. They'll do 3 things simultaneously, coordinated across every market, every time zone, every asset class. First, the treasury dump. China will liquidate their remaining $800 billion in U.S. bonds in a coordinated sale across multiple markets. The bond market crashes. Interest rates spike instantly. The U.S. government suddenly can't finance its $34 trillion debt at sustainable rates. The Federal Reserve faces an impossible choice. Let rates spike and cause immediate depression, or print money to buy bonds and cause hyperinflation. Either choice destroys the system. Second, the supply chain stranglehold. China controls 60 to 90% of critical manufacturing, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, rare earth elements, solar panels, batteries. They won't cut exports completely. That would be too obvious. Instead, they'll require export licenses with processing delays, quality inspections, environmental reviews. Western factories will run out of components within weeks. Panic buying will drive prices up 500 to 1,000%. Third, the alternative system launch. While Western markets burn, China will offer salvation. Yuan-based trade settlement, no dollars required. CIPS payment system instead of SWIFT. Digital yuan for international transactions. Gold backing for credibility. Better terms for countries that switch. And dozens will take it. Not because they want to, because they'll have to survive. This is the controlled demolition of Western financial dominance. The end of dollar hegemony. Not through military force, through economic warfare. But here's what everyone gets catastrophically wrong. The comfortable lies that will cost them everything. Lie 1. China needs America as much as America needs China. Wrong. China's been building alternatives for 15 years. The Belt and Road Initiative gives them markets in 150 countries. They don't need American consumers anymore. They're ready for separation. America isn't. Lie 2. The dollar is too big to fail. Wrong again. The British pound was the reserve currency for 150 years until it wasn't. U.S. debt is now 124% of GDP, $34 trillion and growing. Every time America weaponizes the dollar through sanctions, they show the world why alternatives are necessary. Lie 3. America can respond militarily. Most dangerous lie of all. You can't bomb your way out of a supply chain crisis. You can't invade your way out of economic dependency. China controls the manufacturing, controls the resources, controls the dependencies America built over 30 years. Here's the timeline. China's divestment order must be complete by November 2026. That's when they're fully positioned. That's when the alternatives are ready. That's when stage 4 triggers. Every day that passes, China accumulates more leverage while America deepens more dependencies. The mathematics favor China. The timing is China's choice. The preparation is complete. So how do you survive the collapse? First, understand we're in maximum danger period right now through late 2026. Second, reduce exposure to assets dependent on Chinese manufacturing or dollar dominance. Most Western stocks, government bonds, major city real estate. Third, position in assets that benefit from economic separation. Defense contractors, domestic manufacturing, energy independence, food security, gold and hard assets. Fourth, diversify away from pure dollar exposure into Swiss francs, Singapore dollars, Bitcoin, precious metals. The insiders are already doing this. Central banks buying gold at record rates, billionaires moving money, private equity liquidating Chinese positions, smart money positioning for stage 4. Because here's what happens to people who ignore the pattern. They lose everything. The Dutch with tulips, the British with pounds, the Japanese with real estate, the Europeans with Russian gas. All believed the system was stable. All were wrong. All paid the price. The pattern doesn't care about beliefs or hope. It only cares about mathematics, leverage, and timing. And right now, China holds all three. China's $8 trillion move is complete. The positioning is final. The trap is set. Stage 4 is coming in 2026. The collapse of Western financial dominance is inevitable. Your response is optional. Choose wisely. Position correctly. Time is running out faster than you realize.